Find answers to the following. You have some questions here and you have to tell whether this is true or not. So in the first one, you can see that is 5 by 9 equal to 4 by 5. So what actually we have to do is we have to compare these two fractions. Okay. Once we compare it, then we can tell whether this fraction is greater than or less than or equal to this fraction. So the basic thing that we have to do is to compare it. Now if you take these two fractions, that is 5 by 9 and 4 by 5. So the first one is 5 by 9 and the next fraction is 4 by 5. Okay. So you can clearly see that it is if we look at these two fractions, then we can tell that these are unlike fractions, and even in unlike fractions you have their numerators different. They are not equal or they are not the same. So if you remember, in such cases what we do is we always take LCM of the denominators, and using the LCM then we change the fractions into equivalent fractions having their denominator equal, that is the LCM. So if I take LCM of 9 and 5, so if you take LCM of 9 and 5, 5, 3, 5 and 5, so LCM would be 3 times 3 times 5. This will be 45. Okay, so LCM is 45. Now if I have to convert this, change this fraction into an equivalent fraction having denominator 45, then of course if you divide 45 by 9, then you'll get 5 as the quotient. So in order for the equivalent fraction to have a denominator as 45, we have to multiply both the denominator and the numerator by this fraction, this quotient 5, that is the number 5. So if I multiply 5 with 5, I'll get 25. If I multiply 9 with 5, you will surely get 45, and that was our purpose. The purpose of finding LCM, I'll repeat again, in order to compare, you first take, if your fractions are unlike, you always take LCM of denominators. Once you get the denominator, once you get the LCM, then you have to make an equivalent fraction, you have to find an equivalent fraction having LCM equal to, having their its denominator equal to LCM. Now if you have to make an equivalent fraction for this fraction having denominator as 45, of course you'll multiply 9 with 5, then you'll get 45, and since you have multiplied your denominator by 5, you also multiply your numerator by 5, then only you'll get an equivalent fraction. Okay, so it was just a division or recap. So it's 25 by 45. In order to make this fraction, to find the equivalent fraction of this fraction having denominator as 45, you have to multiply 5 with 9. If you multiply 5 with 9, then you'll get your denominator as 45, right? And since you have multiplied denominator by 9, you have to multiply your numerator also by 9. So 4 times 9 is 36, right? So now you can see that your equivalent fractions, that is this fraction for this one and this equivalent fraction is for this one, they are now like fractions. Why? Because their denominators are the same, that is it is LCM of 9 and 5. So if these two are like fractions, then we will compare the numerator. Of course 25 is smaller than 36, right? So there's no point that these two fractions are equal. So The answer is no. In the next one, again we can clearly see that we have two fractions 9 by 16 and the next fraction is 5 by 9. These are unlike fractions. Their numerators are also different. Numerators are not the same. Next step will be to find the LCM of 16 and 9. And the reason we find the LCM is so that we can change these two fractions in their equivalent fractions having their denominator as the LCM, so that these two equivalent fractions have the same denominator. What is the LCM of 16 and 9? So if you find the LCM of 16 and 9, you'll get 8 here, 9 here, 2, 4 here, 9 here, 2 here, and 9 here, 1 here, and 9 here, 3, and this is 3. So the LCM will be 2 times 2, 4 times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, times 3 is 48, and 48 times 3 is 24 to 144. So your LCM is 144. Okay. Now, if I divide 144 by 16, then you'll get here 9, and this will be 144. So, if I multiply 16 by 9, then I'll get an equivalent fraction having denominator as 144, that is LCM. So the equivalent fraction for this one having denominator 144, that is LCM, will be when I multiply the denominator by 9. Since I have multiplied my denominator with 9, I also multiply my numerator with 9. So 9 times 9 is 81. Now it's time to find the equivalent fraction of this one having its denominator as 144, and to make the denominator of the equivalent fraction of this fraction as 144, you have to multiply 9 with 16. If you multiply 9 with 16, how you'll find that? Just divide 144 by 9 and you will get the quotient as 16. You will multiply 16 with 9, you will get 144. That's a simple mathematics. Since you have multiplied the denominator by 16, you have to multiply your numerator also with 16. And if you multiply numerator, that is 5, with 16, you will get 18. Of course, now these two fractions are like fractions because their denominators are the same. Now you will compare their numerators. Since 81 is greater than 80, numerators are not equal. Therefore, the answer for this one, that is, are these fractions equal? Answer is no. The fractions are not equal. Why? Because these two fractions, this fraction is greater than this one. In this example, again, you have 4 by 5 and we have 16 by 20. Since these two are unlike fractions and even their numerators are not same, convert them into like fractions. How? The first step will be take the LCM of 20 and 5. So if I take the LCM of 20 and 5, this will be 2 times 10 and 5, 2 times 5 and 1, 5, and this is 5 times 1. So the LCM will be 2 times 2 times 5, LCM will be 20. Okay. Now I have to change this fraction into an equivalent fraction having its denominator as 20. So by what number I'll multiply 5 so that I can get 20? The answer is 4. 5 times 4 is 20, right? So since I have multiplied the denominator by 4, I'll multiply numerator also by 4, and 4 times 4 is 16. Okay. Now if I have to write the equivalent fraction of this particular fraction having denominator as 20, right? So if its denominator is 20, then what you have to do is you will simply multiply by 1 only, right? So since you are multiplying by 1, you will get 20. Here also 16 times 1 is 16. Now clearly you can see that now these are what? These are like fractions, since their denominator is equal and their numerators are also equal. So this is 16 by 20, this is also 16 by 20. It means, yes, these two fractions are actually equal. So for this one, the answer is yes.